hashtag Opinion Court on whichever platform you're using, be it Facebook or Twitter. We'd love to track your feedback and to read it out at the end of this broadcast. I'll introduce my guests to you one more time and take you through our trio of topics one by one. To my immediate right is Senator-elect Kipchumba Murkomen. Next to him is MP-elect John Mbadi, and next to him Edward Kisiangani, our resident political analyst. And you're all welcome to the program. And we're focusing on Bunge, and let's start with the plot, or plan, should I say, by NASA to boycott the swearing-in ceremony. They are protesting. President Uhuru Kenyatta is presiding over it at a time when the Supreme Court decision will not have been delivered, one, of course, where his election is being challenged. So, Mbadi, let me start with you. Why boycott the swearing-in, and in what way do you feel that is an effective political position?
Thank you very much, Anne. And since this is the first show that I'm appearing after my re-election,
right,
I want to take 30 seconds just to thank my constituents, Sober South constituents, for giving me a third term in Parliament. I don't take it for granted, and I hope God will guide me through. Having said that, let me put it that I want to be very careful to observe that we are formally meeting as parliamentary group tomorrow,
right,
of NASA. I do know that our Director of Election as ODM has already communicated that we don't intend to participate in the swearing-in ceremony of 31st next week that has been called by the President. But we will we'll make a formal communication tomorrow after NASA shall have held its parliamentary group meeting, right, which will begin at 10, and I invite the media to that event. Having said that, I think the most important debate that we should engage our minds to is not just about the boycott of the ceremony, so to speak, but the legitimacy of Uhuru Kenyatta as the president, and in terms of discharging the functions that he should discharge. I do know that Article 126 of the Constitution gives the president powers and the responsibility to convene the first sitting of Parliament, and it's very clear that he does that through a Gazette notice, and which he should do within 30 days from the date of election. But as it stands, we need to read the Constitution in totality and look at Article 259 of the Constitution, which spells out that the Constitution should be read in a manner or interpreted in a manner that promotes its values, principles, and also, besides that, observe human rights and the rule of law, but above all, promote good governance. So if the president's election has been challenged in courts, and we do believe that the president is should have left office, that he's in office illegally, so to speak, although the matter is before Supreme Court, that we are asking the legitimacy and the legality in terms of what the president is trying to perform as part of his functions or of his duty.
Okay. So post the September 1st decision, should
yes,
it go the president's way,
yes,
will then NASA's brigade go into Parliament and be sworn in under that dispensation?
First of all, we have made it very clear that we've gone to court with very open mind. We expect the court to come out with a very reasoned ruling, in which case, if the ruling goes against our prayers and we are clearly given reasons, convincing reasons, regarding our evidence, then obviously and legally and constitutionally, the president then will be in office procedurally.
Okay.
But if it goes our way again, then it triggers another cycle of either we'll be going for fresh elections, in which case then the process begins afresh.
Right.
But in the event that the decision will be made in a way that does not convince, then obviously we'll take decision at that time.
All right, Murkomen, what do you think of this move, and is it politically effective? Does it have impact?
No, first of all, I want to concur with those who say that we have constitutional rights for everybody to make a decision they want to make, and we respect the decision of NASA to boycott the swearing in. But I am glad to remind Kenyans that We have enough numbers of members of parliament elected in Jubilee and other political parties that are not affiliated to NASA. We have more than enough, actually, to constitute a quorum for parliament. Luckily, Jubilee won elections in all regions of the country, whether it's NASA, whether it's Coast, whether it is Nyanza, whether it is every province, every former province is represented in Jubilee with a critical mass. We will be happy to be sworn in on 31st, elect the speaker, elect the deputy speaker in both houses, and then commence business. You know, and we were elected not to be used by either side of political divide for just political purposes. We have a primary responsibility to come and represent our people. There are serious issues that require legal intervention. There are serious issues that require our attention to discuss formally in the House, and we cannot do that if we are not sworn in. Number two is, I think, I am not a political prophet, but I think NASA tomorrow will change their position and they will come in to be sworn in, because I don't think, having talked to many of the members of parliament elected in different political parties that formed what NASA used to be, I have every doubt whether all of them will abide by that decision to say they are going to boycott. And I am not a prophet, but by tomorrow news in the evening, there's a possibility. But the last and most important...
Is this an abdication of their responsibility to represent their people?
Yeah, because I do not know whether these people have had a chance to go back to the electorate and tell them that we are not willing to be sworn in because we have a quarrel with the election of position of the president. But most importantly, I think my colleague here is missing the point. There is no vacuum in Kenya. The situation we are in was contemplated by the Constitution. We are in a situation where the outgoing president is the incoming president, or the president-elect, until, of course, the Supreme Court makes the decision they're going to make. Remember that last time we were convened way before the Supreme Court made a decision on the president's elections in 2013. That time, the president who was in office was Mwai Kibaki. In the same terms that are provided by the Constitution, and I want to be so basic, you know, in the language I'm going to use, the President Uhuru Kenyatta is still president of exercising his 2013 mandate until, again, hopefully, when the court makes a decision and he wins again, he succeeds himself to continue as a president. So there is no day, as per our Constitution, where we will have a vacuum to say there is no president. That is why Article 126 was convened by President Uhuru Kenyatta, the one elected in 2013. And therefore, you cannot use the President Uhuru Kenyatta elect and I'm just being so basic to make an argument that I am not going to abide by this decision. Yet in 2013, you accepted the president who was going out, which is Mwai Kibaki, when he convened the parliament to come to place. So I think the reasoning around all these arguments is preposterous, to say the least. And I think I want to ask my colleagues that some of the issues they're discussing in barazas, in rallies, they're better sitting in the House and discussing matters. You saw, even in the news, you're talking about pest control and, you know, other challenges that people are facing, starvation.
You're saying they need to be in Parliament.
Parliament has to be in place so that we can continue serving the people, even as we settle our issues through the constitutional means.
Yeah. Prof, do you agree with Murkomen that this boycott would constitute an abdication of their the NASA team's responsibilities to Kenyans in Parliament? And while you're answering that, you of course know that NASA did not stop governors from being sworn in. Is there double speak?
Yeah, I think what Honorable, first, congratulations for being re-elected.
Thank you.
What he's saying actually has basis in law, but I thought that after this riveting encounter in the elections, he will carry to this discussion room some humility. I think he shouldn't be talking about whether they come or not. We can form a quorum. What he should be saying is that he should explain to them exactly the legal position and tell them the bigger good is for them to attend, but not to say we can still go on with business. This country needs to move forward together. But after I've said that, I think there is another bit. I think in terms of the president calling parliament, the legal position, the two legislators have been quoting Article 126. But if you read again Article 134, I think it also expands the spirit of Article 126, and even talks about the duty, what the president should do in Article 142 if he's still not yet confirmed. And in fact, they say he cannot appoint diplomatic fellows, he cannot appoint judges, new heads of institutions. But the basic point is, emphasis is made that the president, while he's there, until he hands over power to another president who is coming, there can be no discussion. He's still the head of state, except for the duties which have been specified in the Constitution. So in terms of calling Parliament under Article 126, that is quite in order, and the president is not wrong to do that, because the Constitution gives certain exceptions which are clearly marked in the Constitution under Article 142. So to that extent, therefore, what I would ask, as I call for Murkomen and the winning his team to conduct themselves with a lot of humility, I also ask my brother Mbadi. He has been very clear and very diplomatic. He says a position will be taken tomorrow. I hope the position that will be taken tomorrow will not be about Uhuru Kenyatta. The position that they take tomorrow should be about the Republic and the people that voted them in to represent them. They must be sworn in order to participate in the election of the Speaker, and also different officials of Parliament to have the process start. And they will not be doing it for Uhuru Kenyatta, they will be doing it for themselves and for the people they represent. But with regard to what will be going on in court, if the court turns out and says Uhuru was not elected properly, I think that is a judicial process, and that judicial process will be ventilated upon and be settled. Either we go for elections or we don't go for elections. But in terms of the governors, I think the doublespeak, which I agree with you, is the fact that if indeed tomorrow we are told Parliament cannot meet, I think they should also have discouraged the governors who took oath already and have assumed office under the NASA parties not to take oath in protest until a determination is made. And some of them will soon also face some petitions. So really, what is being demonstrated is that the country should move forward while we wait for the judicial process to take place for those who have complaints about this election.
Badi, I'll allow your response to the two comments.
Yeah, let me just respond to that first. I know that there's Article 134 of the Constitution that speaks to temporary incumbency. Actually, what the President is enjoying today is temporary incumbency. And that is what is taking this debate forward. I know there are quite a number of functions that the President should not take and cannot take. And then that's why I'm saying the Constitution, when you read it, is a living law. When you read it, you need to really ask yourself what was intended with the Constitution. A matter as important as convening an organ of an institution like Parliament is such a fundamental responsibility that we are asking ourselves whether the President has the credibility to convene Parliament. But I want to just disagree with my friends here that there is a difference between what we are trying to canvass here with the governors. The governors were not convened, or their oath-taking was not convened by the President. There is nowhere in law that the President is required to convene the oath-taking by governors. This is a case where we are not challenging the oath-taking by members of Parliament. We know the members of Parliament exist, they are elected. But what we are challenging is the...
so if he convened it, if the President convened it but wasn't there, the
President will not even be there. If he comes, he will come as a sit in the Speaker's gallery. What we are saying is, does he have that moral authority? Does he have the credibility when we are still challenging his president? But by the way, we have...
Is that weightier than being in the House to get the key positions that you need to...
The issue that we are raising, actually on that day there is nothing that will happen apart from electing the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker and oath-taking. Why can't the President wait for the decision of first? We have all the way to 7th of September. Why is the President rushing to perform a function when we are challenging? And by the way, I want to refer my colleagues to Article 38 of the Constitution once again, which talks about our Bill of Rights. The people of Kenya, every individual has a right for fair credible election, which should be regular, and which reflects the will of the voters. We are saying the election of Uhuru Kenyatta does not reflect the will of the voters. Until the Supreme Court make a determination on first, we ask the president to stop this masquerading as the head of state, as if he was validly elected, until once the Supreme Court shall have made a determination, then he can either go on or respect the will of the people of Kenya.
I think, Annie, it's unfortunate for my colleague here to just split hairs and contradict himself. We have already, he's already talked about the temporary incumbency of President Uhuru Kenyatta. President Uhuru Kenyatta is not acting as the president-elect when he convenes parliament. He is acting on his temporary incumbency. And already my colleague has already talked about that. Number two, remember the Constitution says parliament must be convened within 30 days from the elections. Assuming, for purpose of argument, that the court say we go for re-election, for repeat elections, the 30 days will have exited. Are you going to tell me that because that re-election is going to be done, Parliament should not come to place? The Constitution has already demarcated the time within which Parliament must come to place. The third and most important thing, I think...
Yes, because that would be a 60
exactly. I mean, yeah, there would be another 90 days because these are the 30 plus another 60.
Right.
It would mean that Parliament is not replaced unconstitutionally because we must take oath of office within 30 days. But the most important issue here is to remind my colleague Mbadi that in the separation of powers doctrine and our Constitution, President has very limited responsibilities to do with Parliament. Parliament is independent, it has its own calendar. It's only that the Constitution had to donate a very small responsibility of who convenes Parliament for the first time, and made even sure that that responsibility is not unqualified. It qualified it by saying within 30 days. So when the President calls for that day, and I think there is misguided belief that the President is coming to preside, he does not have responsibility to preside. In fact, he's a stranger to the House that day because he's not even addressing the House. He's just convened, and he has already exercised that responsibility. We will meet as Parliament that day. The clerks will lead the process as it ought to be. Right. We will now have to elect our Speaker. And I want to respond to Professor that when I say we shall be there, I think the humility I must demonstrate as Murkomen is first to the people of Elgeyo Marakwet County, to the extent that even if Jubilee today said we should not go to the House, I would disagree with the President, I would disagree with my party and tell them I have a primary responsibility by the people who send me from Elgeyo Marakwet County to take oath of office. It was not easy for us to be elected. It's not also easy for them to have made a decision to elect us. We must be able to be in the House and serve them. That humility first is to the people of Elgeyo Marakwet County before I discuss about Jubilee and now to discuss about Jubilee and NASA.
Yes, we are moving, but there is also what Senator Murkomen, I don't want to have a showdown. He's already a tired person. He has been in an election. But so I just want to add this, Anne. That what he has said about Parliament, it is strategically important for us to have Parliament constituted, because if, for example, now the judges are ordered that we have another election, how are you going to do the budgeting and the authorization? All the budget statements, so even for the by-election, must, the repeat election must come from Parliament. So if Parliament will not have been constituted, and then in a week's time we are told we go back, we shall need Parliament. So I think strategically it is right that Parliament meets, even if we have not made a decision on the President.
All right. And on that note, gentlemen, when Parliament meets, and walk with me if you would at home, part of the very first order of business for them will be, of course, to elect a House Speaker. So we want to show you quickly those who are in the running for this position. And, you know, of course, Justin Muturi was the first... was the Speaker of the 12th Parliament. And now let's take a look at what Jubilee is proposing. And by and large, they're proposing to keep a similar team. So there you have it for the National Assembly Speaker. You have Justin Muturi to be retained, possibly. These are the discussions that are ongoing, with Moses Chaboy also going in as Deputy Speaker. And I want to start with the wisdom of retaining Muturi. You will remember that at some point we were also reporting to you that Ababu Namwamba's name was being floated around. He, of course, was not successful during the election. And the Kuresoi MP-elect has been considered quite an emerging force, if you like, within the rift. And there are two things that are at play. One would be if the Supreme Court is to uphold President Uhuru Kenyatta's win, then it would be a legacy term. So there are key thoughts about what would drive a legacy agenda in Parliament. And then the second would be, again, if the Supreme Court does uphold President Uhuru Kenyatta's election, the 2022 equation for William Ruto as he looks to build up a team that can support him going forward. So I will want to come to my panel now. What do you think of the retention of Justin Muturi in this position? How was he effective, if at all, for Jubilee, and what is it that you believe he could do differently should he end up in this position running the House? And Mbadi, I want to start with you because you come from a different political wing, and I know in the last Parliament you took a lot of exception to the way in which Muturi ran the House.
First of all, I wanted just to allay the fears that Prof raised regarding the budget for election. I think the budget is already there. We did it. We prepared very well for this election, including fresh elections. Let me go straight to your question, Anne. I really don't know whether you're speaking with authority that Jubilee is proposing to retain the Speaker and bring in Moses Cheboy. I want to give you the benefit of that doubt.
That's what our sources can confirm, and we can ask Kipchumba Murkomen, an insider.
Yeah, probably he will tell us. But first, I know that Jubilee has the numbers. We will also participate in the election of the Speaker. They have the numbers. But to me, it is not the question of whether Muturi performed or he didn't perform. I think the jury is out there. The people of Kenya know how he performed compared to other speakers. I think maybe we need to ask ourselves a fundamental question that with our system of electing Speaker, what do we expect the Speaker to do? Do we really expect the Speaker to digress and be independent and do what probably the executive does not want? I think we may be discussing individuals. Yes, yet it is a systems problem. The problem of electing the Speaker, if it is allowed that the Speaker will be elected by members of Parliament as it is, and those members of Parliament, the proposal will come from the executive, as you have stated, Faith. Because when you talk of there is a proposal to retain him, I guess this proposal must be probably coming from the executive.
Right.
And if that is the case, then what do you expect the Speaker to do? The Speaker will always do what the executive wants. Yes.
No, but you see, if indeed this is a proposal that is coming from the Jubilee leadership, because we need to also be sure that it is coming from them, then they are actually beginning on the wrong footing. Part of the complaint that was there in the last dispensation was that in terms of composing government and doing business of government, they did not spread out enough. This is an opportunity for them. Even if they want to keep Justice Muturi, let them not go with the same discourse that we were witnessing in the last government. I think they should spread out to areas where they had probably not as much support as they expected, but at least they have their members who have made it to become, for example, Deputy Speaker. But now, to say, let's have Justice Muturi, then you have Moses Cheboy trying so that everybody can see that he is going to replace Joyce Laboso, then it means that Jubilee, in its victory, is not even seeing how much some people are hurting in this country, so they really don't care. They want to do business the same way. I'm hoping they don't do that, even with regard to the composition of government and other things, other institutions. They will change and probably spread out and give that post of Deputy Speaker or Speaker to areas which can be described as marginal, in the sense that they don't belong to the actual Jubilee stronghold. Okay,
and I must put the disclaimer that in terms of the regional balance, even as we go through the other positions, you will see names from other communities, but I suppose what you're taking issue to is the prominence of the Speaker position.
Yes.
And I hear you. Your thoughts on this lineup? First of all, can you confirm that this is what is being discussed in Jubilee's inner rooms?
First of all, let me start from the premise that a Speaker of any Parliament represents the majority of that House. And the Speaker that is elected is a property of the party that fronted that Speaker. Of course, once he's in the House, he's guided by the standing orders and the Constitution to act in the best interest of the country. But in terms of pursuing policy positions, manifesto, he must stick with the manifesto of the party that's sponsored. And that is not just here, it's all over the world. You've seen, you've been following the politics of America. Paul Ryan is the other side of Donald Trump. And he must stand in the Congress to support the Republican agenda. When Nancy Pelosi was also leading the House as a leader of Democrats, and the speaker they had that time, I'm forgetting the name, it was also pushing for the Democratic position when
so
Obama
you have no
was there.
apologies about
so
Justin Muturi
no, I'm just saying, yes. And not just Justin Muturi, any other speaker that is going to come to the House must, for a first instance, understand that it's a property of the political party that sponsored and must perpetuate the policies and manifesto of that political party. Number two is to say that Justin Muturi, my friend Moses Cheboy, those are fine gentlemen. But to be very honest, the position of the party as to who will be the speaker or not it will be determined by the party itself through its party organs and also through this parliamentary group. If Muturi and Cheboy are going to be elected to serve, you remember also the members of the party have a say in that determination. I believe that they are going to do a sterling job. They have already been doing, Cheboy in the speaker's panel and Muturi as the speaker. But if any changes are going to occur, it will be the party's decision to make that decision. So yes, that position has not been arrived formally by the political party.
Yes, but Mbadi, you are just shaking your head and
I don't want to discuss the two individuals that we have, because I know them personally. I know Muturi is a polished lawyer, so is Cheboy as an individual. But I want to disagree with my colleague here, Senator Murkomen. A speaker, yes, will be brought in through the votes of the majority party. But once he becomes a speaker, it becomes the property of the people of Kenya and the property of the House. And actually, he becomes the speaker of the House, either the National Assembly or the Senate. The person who has the responsibility to push the agenda of the party is the leader of majority and the leader of minority in that respect. Speakers are supposed to preside and actually make rulings which would be referred to even in future. In fact, the speaker is like presiding over a quasi-judicial process. It's like a judge who is supposed to make rulings that would be cited even so many years down the road. So it is not right to say that once you are elected as speaker by majority from whichever quarter, that you are supposed to further the interests of that quarter. That to me would be responsible.
And let's move on to the seat that you've talked about, and here you have it in the National Assembly for Majority Leader. Again, pretty much the same lineup being proposed to be retained, with Aden Duale as Majority Leader, Naomi Shaban deputizing him. And you will remember that whereas Jubilee may argue that Duale was quite effective in Parliament, he did rub a lot of people the wrong way, and in some quarters, Murkomen was said to leave, a bitter taste in the mouths of Kenyans in terms of Jubilee's boast, if you like, of its powers and majority. Is that the tone that Jubilee would want to be striking in the 12th Parliament? With a leader who was considered, at least by a section of the country, as being quite abrasive and out of order?
No, personally, I believe that Honorable Duale has earned his position. Just like I believe in the court circles, my friend Buddy here has earned his position. Not just necessarily a formal position, but I'm not talking about position in Parliament. I'm just saying, if you talk about Buddy, you know where he fits in NASA and ODM. If you talk about Duale, you know where he fits. And it's not just someone who was handpicked, someone who has worked his way out, from time to this place. So sometimes we may not agree. The same way, even the NASA side, there are people we don't agree, but you must respect that you see so-and-so in his criticism of Jubilee, that person has earned his position in opposition. I would hate to have a lousy leader of minority both in the Senate and National Assembly just for the sake of having someone there, and I would hate to have a situation where NASA will bring people who will be leader of minority who are just, they like Jubilee. They must be also very abrasive in their agenda on their side. So I think those people who disagree with Duale, in the same way we disagree with people who are in NASA, but when we sit down, we say, definitely, it will be very difficult to find someone who can rival what Honorable Duale has done for himself, and his commitment to the House, his commitment to the country, his commitment to passion for what Jubilee wants to do. But that is not to say
that you believe is required for this position of majority
First
leader?
of all, it requires someone who has earned trust within the political circle, out of commitment. If there is any, I doubt if we can have another politician in the National Assembly today who has campaigned all over the country and gone looking for votes like Duale did when he was with William Ruto, when he was with Raila Odinga, when he came to be with William Ruto, and finally when he was with Uhuru and Ruto. He has earned his space. We may not agree, we may disagree on certain instances that he might have told somebody this, he might have said this, but in terms of his commitment to leadership of Jubilee, his belief, his unwavering belief of the Jubilee agenda, I think Duale has done it. But that's not to say, I want to say this, that's not to say that therefore his position is given. It is about the party to go and sit down and say, this time round, we want this player to play position X and the other one position Y.
Prof, is this everything about 2022 as well?
It depends on the agenda of Jubilee, the game plan they have. If you know, every regime has their own Duale. Even if you started from 1963, you discuss Jomo Kenyatta, you discuss Daniel Arap Moi, you know there are
Who was Moise Duale?
you know there were quite many, but you remember Mr. Fix-It was there. They kept changing, and then there was David Mwenje. You know what David Mwenje did under Moi, and hit hard at Josephat Karanja. The Duale is not just one person. There are several Duales who have some are not alive. So, but the point that you really look at in this thing is you have to ask what Jubilee wants. You know, he can keep some of Jubilee's enemies busy while Jubilee does its work. So it depends on how they deploy him. As he put it in a football team, they can deploy him to be a spoiler, and he enjoys it. If he likes the role, he can continue doing it. So he is fiercely loyal. That is one of the things that you will see. And then he's also a troubleshooter. He can also talk insults. Maybe that can put off some of the enemies of...
He can be bare knuckle.
Yes. And of course, then Naomi Shabani, even if you look at both of them, Naomi Shabani is fiercely loyal. And so, if they are looking for loyal people who can even distort the truth in favor of their political formation, these are the right people to do it, because there will be a time. Politics is not about morality. It's not going to be about morality, and it is about vested interests. And it might even reach a point where somebody has to defend wrong things. Duale and Naomi Shabani
would not shy away from
they will do it. So,
Why do you talk to me about these two names, even as I move you to the next slide, which is the Majority Whip Katole Metito and deputized possibly by Benjamin Washiali?
I will talk more on the first two leaders, Duale and Naomi Shabani, and I want to be very brief. Actually, I will shock you. I want to agree almost entirely with Kipchumba Murkomen that if you ask me about Duale as a leader of majority, I think Duale did very well. He was a bit reckless, careless in his talks. If he could moderate a bit of what he says, especially when he attacked Isaac Ruto and said Pesa Sia Mama Yako, things like saying terrorists should go to some place and bomb, those reckless and careless statements which came from my friend Duale. I will tell you, for a leader of majority, what do you need? First, you need a loyalist. Two, you need someone who has a passion for what he does. And Duale did have passion for what he does. You can cite few instances when you failed to see Duale in the House. Thirdly, you need someone who understands legislative role, and it did fit there very well. I will tell you for a fact that Duale is one legislator who, maybe there were researchers that he had behind him, but he understood almost every piece of legislation. That is what you need of a leader of majority, and he was passionate in pushing the agenda, and that is why I said you need a leader of majority to push the agenda of the party, not the speaker.
Not the speaker.
But again, he needs to understand that that position of leader of majority is a constitutional position. When you come out to speak, either in the House or outside the House, people need to see a leader that is humble, a leader that would portray serious leadership, that even international community would say this is truly a leader of majority. I think that is where my friend needs to check a bit. But these other leaders, Katole Metito is also was very solid in his job. He's someone who comes the complete opposite of Duale. He's a very sober, he's a peacemaking individual, a wealth of experience. I think he's going to serve his 5th term. or fourth term, I think. I think fourth term.
4.
202, yes. It's the fourth term. He came in 5 years ahead of me. So he's someone who understands the parliamentary procedure. He's someone who can build bridges. Okay. Regarding Benjamin Washali, I will withhold my comment.
Oh, we may assume why. But do you see a 2022 also calculation in terms of the lineup that we are seeing so far, that there are key figures who would be supportive to the deputy president going forward should things work out at the petition stage?
I'm not so sure. If that was the arithmetic, then it was the calculation started in 2013, because they have basically retained the team. I don't see any new phases here. This same team is the team that was
but Anne, even if you talk about 2022, let's not go there. We don't want to be witch doctors predicting things. What the equation in 2022, although some people say it is a finished product, but it is not yet. I think you will see a lot of things that will take place that will completely make you revise your propositions by 2020.
Right.
Yes.
I'm having a bit of challenges on my screen, so I'm going to apologize for any issues in terms of what you're seeing, but I'll just read it out to you. There is the minority position, and would you have it that John Mbadi's name features quite prominently as a possible minority leader, and you are quite eager to go, Kip. What do you think about your colleague right there, his ability to deliver in the minority leader position?
Keep quiet.
I actually think should Mbadi be selected or elected by the NASA, they will have got a very fine gentleman. First of all, he's among the senior members of parliament in NASA, serving in his third term. Second and most important is he's very loyal to his political party and cause. And I think he has been patient. You know, there was so many times where Mbadi was being taunted to be chair of PAC, to be what, and every time he never got it, he never sulked. And I think, you know, as a country, when we are building for political parties, we must show the right credentials of men and women who are committed to build an agenda of a political party, and they have that passion. Mbadi fits very well in that frame.
Estelle Simiu, some other names that are being
I think once
there?
Mbadi is in the equation, I don't think NASA would be too unplanned to imagine that people from the neighboring counties or the same region would have the majority of the deputies.
I think the truth
is, suspect that once Mbadi is in a certain position, again, you know, ODM is a national party. They would have to give to another region.
Will you be formally applying for this position? Will you be gunning for it?
Pardon?
Will you be gunning for this? Oh, you don't even know what you're talking about.
I think you keep quiet. You keep quiet.
I just want to know, are you interested? Are you interested in this job?
First of all, maybe let me just make a general comment that I don't think we have engaged our mind so much on who is going to be where. We don't lack the human resource to do it. I wouldn't say I'm not interested, because being a leader and a politician, my ambition is very normal, and I don't think I would be reluctant to take up the position.
All right, Prof.
I think unless they consider the political party formations within NASA, I think if for no other reason but political party formation, maybe that's the only thing that can disqualify Mbadi. But he's a brilliant chap. You know him, and he also has his facts. So he's likely to attract a lot of people who believe in the intelligent reasoning in parliament.
But let's talk about the performance of the opposition in the last parliament, and what should, you know, again, the Supreme Court then retain them in opposition mode. What would that mean in terms of how they need to approach a 12th parliament that would be that much more stronger in favor of the ruling coalition than the last one? Is there a need for a change of tack? We saw them, you know, resort to all sorts of tactics to sort of get their voice out, even when they knew well they didn't have the numbers to push through their opinions. Actually,
in the National Assembly, some of them were lured. There was a time when we felt that the National Assembly did not have minority leadership. And there were cases where they were lured by Jubilee to pass unconstitutional laws and you know them, some of them even proposing those laws. And so in terms of leadership, the top leadership, for Jubilee to, for NASA to make sense in that house, they must change the minority leadership if they remain in the minority. But even if they become majority, which is not going to happen anyway, we can only say they are going to be minority. Even if the presidential results are changed, I think the best way to have good debate so that they can check any mischievous activities, legal activities from Jubilee. I think you need people like Mbadi. They actually were let down in the House. The leadership there made a lot of mistakes, some of them constitutional mistakes, and then they would end up complaining. And you remember we have had these discussions here about the media laws and so on. Then we say, I one time asked Mheshimiwa Mbadi, but you are in the House, what were you proposing? So I think if he goes there, he has the vision, he can help to inject a lot of sense in the legislative agenda, and probably even try to pull together everybody, put together everybody, build alliances and pass good laws. Because if they don't pass good laws and they are minority, we only now have to go to court. So I think it's a
last opinion court has no vote on the matter. But as we wind up, because Murkomen, I know you want to respond, would you, even as we touch very finally, I'm not going to talk about minority whip where we've heard names like Junet Mohammed and Chris Omala being proposed. Of course, we'll see about that. And again, I beg your pardon for any challenges on my screen. But if you would also, Murkomen, talk about the Senate, the House in which you are. And of course, we're hearing names like Chris Obure, fronted by Jubilee, Charles Nyachae's name being dropped. What is that about? Ekwe Othuro obviously not being proposed to retain that position by your side of the coalition. Was that a loyalty issue? And if you would, Susan Kihika proposed to deputize possibly Chris Obure, at least from Jubilee's perspective on how the Senate should run.
Let me just first respond to the question of the National Assembly, the minority side. I think we must, as a country, hate the dictatorship of the majority. You can see we are a supermajority National Assembly. And I would hate a situation where, because we are supermajority, we are not under checks and balances. It would be great to have a very serious team from the minority side, and also a parliament, and I hope, because this is the last, hopefully, if the president succeeds in the petition, being his last term, we need also a parliament that will help him leave a legacy. And I want to see more of bipartisan negotiations on certain bills and certain discussions. Right. But those bipartisan positions must come from greater checks and balances from the minority side. And as I said, I support a strong minority side, both the National Assembly and the Senate. I do not know what NASA coalition agreement says about leadership in the House and whether it touches on which party will be given where. That's up to them to look at it. But whichever side they come from, I'd like to see a strong Senate. I've seen my colleague Mutula Kilonzo Jr. is being mentioned also in the Senate leadership of the minority side, and I think we really need strong minority side on both sides of the House.
Proposals of Farah Maalim as well?
Yeah, exactly. But when it comes to the Speaker of the Senate and the Deputy, the same rule applies. I don't think there is a reason at the moment to doubt why Ekwe Othuro could not be elected, and or whether there is anything wrong with the other names being proposed. And as I said, the political party will sit down. I believe Ekwe Othuro
the corridors of power would have it that. And I'm not referring to the newspaper one, I'm just as a figure of speech, that yes. Ekwe was not seen to be loyal enough, especially during the campaign period, that he was not there actively, advocating Jubilee Party policy, and beyond that, was not, was even rumored to be cozying up to the opposition. So is this a whipping of him? I
think that is extremely unfair on the side of Senator Speaker Ekwe Othuro. In the first place, there is nothing that we required Ekwe Othuro to do the Senate that he didn't do. It is only that his style was different. He preferred a situation where we reach a consensus, take longer time to debate. He was a fine speaker. And I can say here that in terms of the roles of a speaker, Senator Ekwe Othuro did a fantastic job. In terms of campaigning for Jubilee, he was on the ground campaigning for Jubilee. He may not have received so much media coverage the way most of you don't cover news when we are in marginalized areas like Turkana, but he did his job.
That's a pot shot, and not a very fair one.
The thing that the party will have to discuss, and as I told you, the name of Chris Obure, Nyachae, my colleague Senator Susan Kihika. And by the way, we in Jubilee produced 3 elected senators, women, Susan Kiega, Margaret Kamar, and Fatuma Dulo, and they must play recognizable role in the Senate. That is my, I don't know which exact positions they are going to be put. It is important. It's important that the 3 ladies at least find to play, because we are also encouraging women participation in leadership. That said and done, I believe that Jubilee, when they sit down and reorganize its house, or should not reorganize, everybody will find a place to play a role. And all those 3 people you mentioned, Charles Nyachaya, Chris Obure, Ekwe Thuro, they all played a key role towards the success of Jubilee, and I have no doubt that they will have a play, everybody will have a place to play a role in the government of Uhuru Kenyatta should he win the presidency again.
Badi, final comment.
I wouldn't have a problem really with Chris Obure. He has been a member of my party. I know his capacity. I served with him in parliament for 5 years. He was a cabinet minister for quite a bit of time, and people know him. He has a very solid educational background plus political experience. But my only concern is, as a country, the reason why Ethuro may not be so attractive to Jubilee is worrying me as a country. I want to ask my Kenyans to ask themselves why we need the Senate. Because Senate actually should be a very sober house. And in which case then you need even the Speaker also, who is a bit sober, so that when matters become difficult at the House of Representatives in any democracy, then once it reaches the House, the Senate, and that is why I've been saying and repeating it, that our Senate, as it is constituted in our Constitution, needs to be relooked into, because that House, the powers that we gave the House, cannot allow that House to exercise the powers that any democracy would want a Senate to play. So in that case, I want to really ask Jubilee to really think through when they're proposing speakers, they need to, the guidelines should not be that you did not serve the interest of the party as you should have. To me, that I think is wrong.
Which they are very
you know what I'm surprised, Jan, is that...
I haven't said your name.
No, not my name. Just that we spend about 10 minutes discussing or 15 minutes discussing the leadership of National Assembly, but we didn't discuss anything about the leadership of the Senate, particularly the minority side, and I had something to say about it.
Shoot, and then Prof will wind it up for us.
No, Senate also is in a very important pivotal position at the moment, where we want to review the work that Senate has been doing towards devolution and how to strengthen that house. And I believe that the leadership of the minority and majority side should also be strong enough. We have a critical role to play in terms of ensuring that devolution works, and particularly when we are reviewing a lot of things about devolution. And I hope also the minority side this time round will think about strengthening the Senate. I don't know, I haven't seen the names being proposed there as such, but I hope to see a strong people, as I said, like Mbadi, in the National Assembly.
Come on, give us a name.
Who will help
you seem to have someone in mind.
I don't know from the minority side. I mean, from our side, I know our colleague, Senator Kithure Kindiki, is likely to retain his position, and we have no problem with him. He has performed fantastic. And as I said, we want to see also the women who are elected playing a role in the leadership of the Jubilee side to ensure that they have a place in leadership.
And yourself for whip, actually?
No.
Is that true?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's as I said earlier, I am one very loyal member of Jubilee, and if I'm told to play number 9, I'll play number 9. If I'm asked to play defense, I'll do so. I believe that every position plays, assists in taking the country forward. When I was just a mere member and chair of devolution committee, I think I enjoyed my role, and I would play any position myself.
What do you think, Prof? Would he be a good whip?
I mean, Murkomen wants to be even the Speaker of Senate. He's not being kind. He just wants you, Anne, or myself to propose him. We have no powers.
Not at all.
But he's a competent lawyer. He knows the rules of the House, no problem. But I think when you look at the Senate leadership, whether you are talking about this leadership from the point of view of the minority or the majority, Anne, the quickest thing you should think about is that almost 25 governors were sent home. And that means, that is a statement from the Republic. The voters think that the governors didn't do a good job. And part of the problem was Senate. And you know, there were attempts to even impeach governors. There were cases where members of the public knew that public funds had been embezzled in the counties, but there seemed to be this interesting marriage between Senate and the county governments that impeachment became nothing. And even whenever you told governors you are going to be impeached, they will appear in Senate, talk to senators, and then you see an about turn, people just tell you that, you know, I think we have not enough evidence. So we are looking for leadership in Senate which can stand the integrity that the people are looking forward to seeing in the Constitution, so that when senators embezzle our funds, governors embezzle our funds, Senate plays the role that is given to it by the Constitution and makes sure that the Senate sends the governors home to save our funds. They didn't do a good job, and part of the problem was leadership in Senate did not play its role. So I'm looking for a new kind of leadership within Senate, which can play to the wishes of the people in terms of forcing the governors to be accountable in their actions. Governors became kings. And during this first term under the new constitutional dispensation, governors were ungovernable. So really we want a leadership that we want a strong Senate with strong leadership.
I think we hear you. We are absolutely out of time. We're going to take a short break. My sincere thanks to my panel this evening. It's been fantastic having you both back on the show. We're taking a break. We're back with your feedback. After this, stay with us.